Hi everybody, my name is Hannah and this is Pepper and Pine, and today I want to share with you the books and resources we are using for our physics main lesson block, specifically on electricity and magnetism. So I have a number of projects I want to share with you, as well as some books that we're using for all of our physics main lesson blocks, and I'm going to share those with you at the end. So the first projects I want to share with you are these really cool make your own digital clock using a lemon. So this is a really cool project to use things that you probably have around your house in order to make electricity. This kit was really great. It did work, but it did have a couple of issues with it. It wasn't quite as easy to use or work as well as we expected, but I think the concept is really great, and you could probably do something similar with things that you have around your house, but I do really appreciate having kits that come with everything that you need in order to do these projects. Like this one here, which is to make your own light bulb. And this is a kit that also comes with everything that you need in order to create your own light bulb. And what I like about these things is that, yes, you could probably find some of these materials around the house or at the hardware store, but having it together with instructions and pictures on how to do the project really works for me well for this particular subject area, where it's not my strongest subject area. So having these resources that are pre-made, pre-assembled really helps me out. And then we can get to the fun part of working on these experiments and also watching these things, experiencing them so that we can have a relationship with them, so they come alive. And that's something that sometimes you miss by just reading the books. And having these projects where you can really just see, like a lemon create electricity, or you can make a light bulb, puts a different creates a relationship to the material and the student. And it's, I feel, one of those really profound moments where when you're experiencing these things, it really stays with you. And having those experiences in a homeschool setting or a school setting where you can have that stay with you as you progress through your lessons and dive deeper into the subject areas is going to be really profound. I like those connections quite a bit. We also have this electromagnetics kit. This is by Scientific Explorer, and this comes with lots of different projects that you can do to explore electromagnetism. These projects are really basic and pretty simple, but I've still included it here because when I'm putting together our main lesson blocks for our homeschool, it's usually going to be for multiple ages, multiple grades, multiple abilities, and I like to have a variety of projects and books and resources so that it can work with all of our students. But primarily, this is a main lesson block for upper elementary, junior high, and even into 9th or 10th grade. We also have the Magic School Bus Jumping into Electricity, and this again is going to have a lot of materials in order to do different electricity and magnetism projects, and there are a lot of different options for getting kits like this. I think the electromagnetics kit and this kit are really similar, and we've had other ones in the past. So you just need a few resources in order to create your own projects. You need magnets, a tiny light bulb, some batteries, some wires, and with those few tools, you can actually create a lot of your own demonstrations at home. So let me put these demonstrations aside and share with you some of the books that we're using for this unit. We have a DKI witness book on electricity, and this is going to be a great resource for a parent or a teacher to refamiliarize yourself with some of these concepts so that you can bring them to your students. It is a book that in the past we would have read a couple of pages each day, but I think since we have other living books that are going to be a little bit more engaging, we might forego this one, but I do really like these photographs in here. I usually choose books that have a lot of illustrations, so it's actually nice to see these photographs, and this one is packed with information. So this is definitely a book that I would recommend. However, it is a little bit more on the drier side. It is a little bit more dense, so it's a little bit more challenging to get through. Explosion Zone, Faraday, Pioneer of Electricity. I really like the series of books. I find them to be really whimsical. I like the illustrations, and the stories just are fun to read through. You learn a lot, even though the material is pretty simple. So I've included this one here for electricity, and you can also use this one as a biography for thermodynamics. Magnets and electricity. This is a workbook, or rather an activity book for grades 2 through 5, but I would say that some of these projects can be used for younger students as well as older students. I like that it's really simply laid out, has all of the materials that you're going to need, like the explanation of the materials that you're going to need. The activity has some information on, what's actually happening. But I would say that while the experiments and the projects can be enjoyed by all grades, I would still put the material and the physics lessons at upper elementary. I think that experiential physics that children do naturally is fine at younger ages, but I do think that some of these concepts are a little bit more advanced for a young student. We also have the Usborne Understanding Science, Electricity and Magnetism. This book is from, I think, the 1990s, and so it was quite dated, but a lot of the material still was relevant, but the examples were not relevant anymore. So we kind of had a fun time going through this book and kind of laughing at some of the things that were like, oh, well, that's actually come and gone, and that's no longer going to be something in the future. We're actually experiencing this right now. So when it says electricity in the future, when we finally got to the back of the book, we were just kind of laughing at some of the things in a humorous way, not in a making fun way, that some of these things that were predicted for the future are things that the children have grown up with and have come to accept as just part of their life. Usborne Science Activities, Science with Magnets. This is also a very old book, and you can find books that will have similar examples and similar demonstrations that are newer. So if you're looking for this particular book, it's probably going to be at a used bookstore or maybe like vintage collections because it's super old. But the thing is that the projects themselves, you can still find them today in up-to-date books. These projects are super simple. I would put this at younger elementary versus older elementary. But the reason why I like to include some of these things, aside from having younger students do my main lesson blocks that are intended for older students, is that it gives you a really simple understanding of some of these concepts that you're going to build on later on. All right, so let's dive into some of the materials that we're using in order to do some of our electricity and magnetism demonstrations and projects. So most of these things are from Educational Innovations or from Ward's Science, and they're going to be the materials that we use in order to make our own demonstrations for this main lesson block. The first things I want to show you are a number of rods that we got in order to do our static electricity demonstrations. So we have them as a glass hollow rod. We also have a plastic rod, and I think this was a polypropylene. Oh no, actually the stirring rods are polypropylene. This was acrylic. This is nylon, and this was the glass that's filled. So solid glass, hollow glass, and then a couple other materials as well. And this is just to do our static electricity demonstrations. And we also have a magnet. This is a horseshoe magnet, so the north and the south are near each other. And this is one that we actually had in our supplies from a kit that we had, but I went ahead and I got one. I thought this would be a little bit stronger so that we could do our demonstrations with one that was stronger, because I was kind of thinking that the one that we had wasn't going to work. So that is why we went ahead and we got that horseshoe magnet, as well as all of these materials. And then we have our naturally magnetic lodestone, and this is supposed to be naturally magnetic, and it's supposed to attract little metal objects, and so that will be nice to include in our just in our observations. I think there are some projects related to that. Actually, I wanted to share with you one more time through these books is that these books actually have a lot of projects and demonstrations that you can do. So for instance, in here, Discovering Static Electricity, there were a couple of projects that you could do using amber and wool cloth in order to produce static electricity, or just that it attracts materials to the amber. And we also used a plastic rod in order to bend water. And so through these books, we've also decided to do some other projects that we might not have otherwise done because we're primarily using our curriculum. But these projects that you'll find within these books, they're generally really simple to do. And if you have a base of of supplies that you think that you'll use for your physics, like magnets and batteries and a light bulb and some wire, then you can do a lot of these things with just those materials. And so we went ahead and we did a lot of these projects, like the copper plating and bending electricity, based on these books. So we have those materials in order to do that. So the iron filings, this is just little iron filings. They can get all over the place, so do be mindful of them. And this is also for one of the projects that we saw in this book as well as in our curriculum. So in this book, we tried out the discovering electromagnetism using iron filings. Oh, well, now I can't find it. Oh, there it is. So we went ahead and we did that project using our iron filings. And actually it didn't work out that great, but we did try. Something else I got was eddy current rods. And this is already like completely set up and ready for you to use. I love demonstrations like this. I know it does take up some space, and so we do need to accommodate all of these materials into our homeschool space. And sometimes it's not worth it to have these materials if you can make something pretty easily. This one has magnets, I believe, on both sides, and these are 3 different materials. I think this is nylon, steel, and copper. Actually, it probably tells you. And then you can just see how these little washers go down at different rates, depending on the material. So that was kind of, it's a demonstration that is simple. And yes, it does take up space and it does cost money. And so these are the kind of things that really probably suit a classroom more than a homeschool classroom, just because there are going to be more students that can benefit from it. The next thing I want to show you is this really, really cool demonstration. This is one that I highly recommend. These magnets are super strong. So it comes with steel balls and 1 magnet. And you put the steel balls in the center. And you can, if you know Newton's, gosh, I can't remember what it was called, with the swinging balls back and forth, Newton's swing, I think it is. This is the same thing, only with a track. A little bit, not quite the same thing, because there's a lot more friction going on here. But you can take the 1 ball and you can watch how it's not going to exceed the track. Let me put this on the side so that you can see it better. It's not going to exceed the track. And the energy is going to diminish through friction, and also as it's coming back down, well, actually just basically through friction. Okay, so now we're going to use, can't remember which one it was. Okay, so now we're going to use our magnetic ball, that's right. And now we can see how different the results are going to be. And you can see that it came right off, and that's because as the magnetic ball approaches the steel balls, it accelerates just enough to provide more, that increases the potential energy, so then it's transferred into kinetic energy, and it's enough to, to send it off its track. So let me try that one more time. Oh, let's try that one more time. Uh-oh. Wait, am I doing the right ball? Yeah, okay. Let's do it again. Oh, well, this is a little embarrassing. And off it goes. All right, so this has been a really fun demonstration for us. You can try it with different numbers of balls in the center. You can try it with just the steel balls, and you can try it with the magnetic balls, and you can try just a variety of combinations to see the results. So we really enjoyed this one a lot. I do highly recommend it. So next we have, let me show you actually something that I prepared well in advance of starting our physics unit. I collected a number of items that we anticipated using for our physics unit. Some of these materials, they came from previous kits that we had, just hand-me-down physics kits like the ones that I showed you earlier. So there were a lot of these materials from those kits already that I just collected and put them all here so that when we started our physics unit, I had all these things on hand. I also made a number of just different materials that we would need for our optics and light demonstrations. So I pre-made these so that when we were in our lessons and doing our lessons, I had all of those things ready to go. And this is our string telephone. And then we have some silly putty here to do some, I actually don't remember the projects that we were doing them with. I think with a balloon and static electricity. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We have our candles here, as well as our paraffin wax candles that we needed specifically for some of our projects. We also are going to be doing our chemistry main lesson block kind of in between throughout basically these physics lessons. And so some of these things kind of overlap with those lessons as well. So I had all of this ready to go so that whenever we needed something kind of spontaneously for our projects, at least we had it all in one place and at our fingertips. I also pulled out a few books on weather and climate, and this had to do with one of the books that we were previously reading that alluded to or referenced thunder and lightning for our electricity lessons. And so I decided to kind of diverge for a moment and talk about weather and climate a little bit. So I've got 3 books here. This one's called Weather and Climate, and I really, really like this book a lot. It has just the right amount of information, great overview, awesome hands-on projects and activities with things that you can probably just find around your house. You don't really need any special tools for them. And so we kind of departed from our electricity lessons and the books that we were reading about electricity and magnetism in order to explore weather and climate and specifically thunder and lightning. But of course, once we got into this, then we just kept reading it and doing some of the projects that you can find in here. I also have witness guides for weather, and this one is probably more of a reference material, in my opinion, that I would use in order to just prep for some lessons. If you've got a child who's really into reading these books, then they're great resources. I just find them a little bit dry sometimes and a little bit better for me to absorb the information and deliver it. In the past, we used to read 2 pages a day as part of our main lesson blocks and unit studies, and we would just have this kind of go along with us for the entire unit, reading 2 pages a day as we went through it. And that was a nice way to do it, but I found that it took a lot of time to read these kinds of books, and the information didn't really stick with my children. It's not a living book. It wasn't really captivating. And often they wouldn't even look at the pictures and the illustrations, or they were primarily pictures, very few illustrations. Something else about the whole series of books by the DK Eyewitness is that there are beautiful photographs. There's a little bit of an introduction or a small paragraph, but then there are a lot of captions that go along with these different images. And while that's super captivating for a lot of students, I found it a little bit distracting. I didn't like that format for my books, but I think that it's great for a lot of students. It kind of takes you on a journey, and it's kind of exciting, and you can just read little bits here and there. But I didn't find it something that really stuck with my children. We also have the Storm book, and I do like adding picture books whenever possible. This one's okay. I can't say that my children really love it at all. One thing that they don't care for is that the illustrations and the text are on different pages, and they prefer to have them on the same page so that as I'm reading, they can look at the pictures. They don't really like looking at a blank page while I'm reading the story. So this is just another book that I pulled that went along with our weather and climate little subtopic within our topic of electricity and magnetism. And we did find some really good projects to do from this, so we did enjoy adding this in. I also have 2 demonstrations that I added to this unit, even though they're not exactly about electricity and magnetism, actually they're not at all. But because we diverted a little bit and talked about weather, I thought that these projects would be helpful in understanding pressure, since air pressure is talked about when we're doing weather and climate. But this one is going to be used for our anatomy unit as well. And this is basically a demonstration to show how the lungs work. And it's a super simple demonstration. You could probably make something pretty similar, but the contraption's kind of cool. And there are 2 balloons that are attached to it. And when you pull this part down here, you can see how the balloons inflate. So a really simple demonstration, again, something that you'd probably find in a classroom over a homeschool classroom, but being able to add these projects that are already ready to go really saves me time so that I can devote my time to preparing these lessons or doing more hands-on projects or preparing the hands-on projects where I don't have them already pre-assembled. So this one is also about air pressure, and this is called the Harbottle Air Differential Demonstration. And for this one, you also have these balloons that you inflate, and then you put the stoppers out, then you put the stopper in, you inflate the balloon, or vice versa, and then you put water in the balloon, and then you remove the stopper. And it's a bit of a prank because the person then gets a face full of water, but it is to demonstrate air pressure. And so that one's got a really nice sturdy glass bottle, and I love demonstrations like this where you really, it's like a whole experience, and it really helps you have that experience embedded and that memory, and hopefully that love of that lesson can carry you through to some of the lessons that are going to be a little bit laborious, or as you move on with physics and chemistry and some of these other sciences, there's a lot of math that goes along in it that really helps you understand what's going on, but that can be really challenging for some students. So having this aha moment or this reverence in the moment for a project like this, I feel really has a lasting effect. Okay, I've got one more to show you. This one is another one on air pressure, and it is the egg bottle demonstration. And this bottle is nice and sturdy, really hard, sturdy glass. And basically you have a little candle inside, and then you put a hard-boiled egg here. And then once the candle goes out, because it's used up all the oxygen, it creates some pressure, like a vacuum rather, and it pulls the egg through the bottle. So super cool. Now this is totally something I thought I could do at home, but I didn't have a bottle in the right size, and so I ended up buying this. But now that I see the size, I'm like, oh, you know what? I think I saw some cream bottles at a local grocery store that were just the right size, because you're looking for something that's maybe about an inch or so, inch and a half in diameter for the lid, or the top part. And then of course this sturdy glass. So I'm not sure that you can do it with other materials. You need to have it pretty sturdy. But again, having these demonstrations is something that I love including. Again, I think that they're really educational, they're memorable, they're great experiences, and I think they bring a lot of joy to the students when they're doing these physics experiments and projects, and the whole main lesson block in general. The last physics books I want to show you are the resources we're using for all of our physics units. We have Heat, Light, and Sound, Introduction to Physics by Live Education. This is for grade 6. This is a general, very gentle introduction to physics. It goes into a little bit more detail for grade 7 when we explore electricity, magnetism, mechanics, acoustics, and optics. And the examples and demonstrations get a little bit more involved for grade 7. We also have Physics the Waldorf Way for grade 6, grade 7, and grade 8. I really like this series of books. We've mostly primarily just used grade 6, but I liked it so much that we went ahead and we got the other 2 levels as well. The demonstrations are really simple to do. It's like the procedure is very clear, the materials are off to the side, the illustrations make it very clear on what you're supposed to do and what you're supposed to achieve. So I really like this series of books. I highly recommend them. The last book I want to share with you is a resource for me as a teacher, as a parent. This is the DKI Witness book, The Visual Dictionary of Physics. And in the past, we used to read these kinds of books throughout our units, a couple of pages every day. One thing that's kind of nice about these kinds of books is that it's not a progressive book. So you can pick up this book, go to any section that you want to learn about and read it, and not have had to read the rest of the book prior to it or read the rest of the book till the end. That's one of the nice things about this book. But on the same, the flip side of that is that it's not a book that's going to carry you through in a story format, a narrative format. Not that physics has to, but there are some books that are a little bit more engaging. This, I think, is a really great resource to give you the background you need as a parent or a teacher to understand the lessons that you're going to be doing in physics when you're presenting them. And if you have a student who's really into science or mathematics, then I'm sure that they would just absorb these pictures and just love reading through these, even if they're a young student and the math and the science is beyond their level. Don't forget to check out the blog post that accompanies this video for more information, as well as information regarding the video series I have on my website at pepperandpine.com that has all of the demonstrations and projects we're doing for our main lesson block in physics. You can find that link down in the description box below. And if you want to see how our homeschool is progressing on a daily basis, you can find me on Instagram at pepperandpine.